Welcome to another edition of Hey Bobby with Senior VP of the Cleveland Guardians. My good friend, our good friend, Bobby DiBiasio, takes time out of each week to join us here on 93.5, 1590, WAKR.net, YouTube channel, Facebook page, the whole 9 yards. Couple of things I wanted to talk to Bobby about. This week marked the anniversary of Earl Averill passing away in 1983. Six-time All-Star. And being at the ballpark this week, I looked up into the right field and I see Earl Averill. I don't know if enough Cleveland baseball fans really know how good Earl Averill was. I know who does. So let's bring in Bobby on that. Bobby, why don't we talk a little bit today about Earl Averill?
Yeah, Earl, the Earl of Snohomish was his nickname. The Earl of Snohomish, and Snohomish, Washington was his hometown. Played 13 seasons in Major League Baseball, 11 in a Cleveland uniform back in the late 20s to late 30s with us, 1929 to 1939, as you said, a six-time All-Star. He was inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in 1975, so that tells you what kind of career Earl Averill had. He was the third player in our franchise history to have his uniform number retired. He wore uniform number 3. Of course, Bob Feller was the first gentleman to have his uniform number retired, number 19, and Lou Boudreau was second, number 5. Earl Averill was a power-hitting outfielder, and until guys by the name of Jim Thome, Albert Bell, and Manny Ramirez came along, which was in the 90s, Earl Averill was the all-time home run leader of our franchise with 226. So it took 3 pretty darn good hitters to take him off the top of the list in our franchise's all-time home run list. And just a remarkable offensive player. He was an outfielder, power-hitting outfielder. Still holds, Ray, a number of records in our franchise history. He's still a top, and I've got to look at them all because it's a pretty long list. He leads in extra base hits with 724, runs scored with 1,154. He's the only player in the history of our franchise that has collected more than 1,000 RBIs and 1,084. Leads in triples with 121, total bases 3,200.
Wow.
So and an outstanding performer, especially in a Cleveland uniform after all these years, from again 29 to 1939, and he's still at the top of the list in a lot of the key offensive categories. Certainly says a lot about his athleticism.
Well, I remember you and I a couple years ago when we did the top 100 Cleveland players, when we did the Indians Madness for the brackets and everything. You and I sat down at lunch, and I remember
pizza.
Yeah, with pizza. And you said specifically, you said, well, listen, Earl Averill has to be in that top area somewhere as far as bracketing. And to be honest with you, I knew the name, but I didn't know how good he was until you said, go look at what this guy did. And I just listening to you right there, rattle off the statistics and what he's done. This guy, one of the best players ever in our franchise history.
Yeah, retired with a 318 batting average. I think his rookie season, he hit 311. Again, a 6-time All-Star. I think he started 3 All-Star games, if I'm not mistaken. But again, the problem that I don't think he gets a whole lot of credit simply because from 29 to 39, much like Mel Harder, we weren't ever in the postseason. So you just never heard of a guy unless he, really performed in late September back then, in the World Series or such. But yeah, one of the, obviously, with the retired uniform number, the third in our franchise history, as I mentioned. He's among the elite in our illustrious, tradition-rich franchise.
Senior VP with the Cleveland Guardians, Bobby DiBiasio, with us, and we talked about offense. I wanted to talk to Bobby about pitching today. We saw the debut. I saw it in person the other day of young Curry making his major league debut on the mound. We saw him with the Akron Rubber Ducks just a couple of months ago. And boy, time after time, you look at Tristan McKenzie, you look at Shane Bieber, and we can go generation after generation. The pitchers keep coming through the system. And I thought, Bobby, you could take us in to the back room a little bit. I know Mike Chernoff, I know Chris Antonetti do a lot of this work and their staffs, but the commitment of the franchise really starts and ends with pitching, pitching, pitching. And you're seeing it again with the new generation that we have now. And here comes Curry up, and he pitches pretty darn good for his debut. Talk about this from the franchise's standpoint, starting at the top of the Dolans, the commitment to pitching.
You think about our franchise, and pitching obviously comes to the forefront simply because of Bob Feller. I think the greatest name in our franchise history was a pitcher. And those of us who, I would say from, the 40s on up, having the guys like Mike Garcia and Bob Lemon and Early Wynn and Bob Feller, the Big Four, a number of those guys in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. And then all of a sudden you have a Herbie Score burst on the scene to be Rookie of the Year, and a guy like Sam McDowell, who could have been better than all of them, with his incredible ability and size and strength back then. I think the new age of pitching in our organization really was born out of a need, in the sense that starting pitching, especially in our business, has gotten so expensive in the free agent market that there was a philosophical decision that we must develop our own. We have to churn pitchers out, because for us to be a consistent winning team, it all starts in the middle of the mound. I think you hear Terry Francona say that day after day after day, that winning streaks and consistent winning cultures all starts in the middle of the diamond, and it starts with your starting pitching. And we can't go out and buy a Max Scherzer. I mean, he's a New York Met at $43 million a year for a reason. There's only a handful, a small handful of teams that could afford that. So when you begin the philosophical approach that we have to make sure that we develop our own, now you put the process in place. What do you look for? Well, first and foremost, in our organization, top to bottom, every position, we look for character. We look for good, solid young men who are willing to learn and listen and work hard. And we put incredible amount of analytics, sports science, great coaching, strength and conditioning to work on a player's mechanics, to make sure that they can stay healthy as a pitcher, and handle the workload that will be asked of them. Our guys have done a remarkable job. They call it, some in the media have called us a pitching ninja school, and in one sense that's true.
Yeah, I agree. And we've seen now, just in recent history, 3 different generations of starting rotations, and there are more to come as we watch down in Akron this year with Curry and Danny Espino. I mean, these guys are all the next generation coming up through.
Yeah. Tim Belcher is interesting. He's been part of our pitching ninja school, if you want to call it that, for a number of years now. Number one draft pick himself, and out of Mount Vernon, Ohio. And he had this philosophy of 3 firsts. You have to get a first pitch strike, and you have to attack that first batter, get that first out, and you have to have a strong first inning that just carries your momentum and psyche and positive approach, through the rest of the game. And so there's specific, again, philosophies on how you attack the strike zone, fastball first, so you can set up everything else, but controlling the strike zone, being dominant in that first inning and with that first pitch and getting that first out is so very important. It changes the whole nature of an inning. But it's fun to see, in one sense, these pitchers have become all like 6'4", 6'6", 230. And then yesterday, Xavier Curry, he's listed at 5'11", maybe 200 pounds. So you don't have to be the big, strong, fireballer like the mountain man that we had, Mr. Gaddis, the other day, 6'6", 260 or whatever he weighs in at. But the approach, again, utilizing every resource possible that's available to us from a sports science aspect to, and Trevor Bauer, you got to give him some credit. I mean, Trevor Bauer helped the game of baseball in the sense of pressure points on a baseball with each finger, how that spin rate works, how you can control different pitches, and the sports science aspect to the game. And people stood up and listened. And, we weren't one to back off when we acquired him. We actually dove in and said, okay, a lot of this makes sense. How do we improve upon it? And how do we implement it? And how do you communicate it with each of the young kids? But it really is an interesting aspect that we took the player payroll, the economic realities of the game, and that in turn gave us a philosophical approach to how do we want to be a consistent winning culture here, a sustained winning culture, and the understanding it starts with the pitcher, and how do we develop our own? And our guys have done a phenomenal job with that.
And that's why 6 to 2 months ago, no matter where we were, I said, I still pick us to win the division, because nobody in this division really has the pitching that we do. Senior VP with the Cleveland Guardians, my good friend Bobby DiBiasio, with us with another edition of Hey Bobby. As always, my friend, thank you for the time. We'll reconnect again next week. Thanks again.
Thank you, Ray. Go Guardians.